Hi Umesh. Hi Sam.
Hi.
I think Professor David, yeah, he's also joined it. We are all set now.
Hello.
That's right.
Good afternoon, one and all.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So, with a fast changing world, there is an increasing number of jobs, startups, and higher studies in India. Hence, job versus higher studies and entrepreneurship is always a hot topic for the youth. One day, one student dreams of becoming Elon Musk, the other day, cracking a CAT, and remaining days working on prototyping the idea into reality. With the increasing number of choices available comes the indecisiveness in choosing the right path ahead. The dilemma that most students face is choosing between a job, higher education in their field of interest, or starting their own business. IIT Bombay brings to you the panel discussion titled Job versus Entrepreneurship versus Higher Education. Join me along in welcoming the esteemed panel, including Professor David Bardolet, Mr. Sam Kamath, Mr. Ajay Bohora, to get more insights into the same. Let us get to know our panelists well. Let me start with introducing Professor David Bardolet. He is the Dean of SDA Bocconi. He has over 10 years plus of experience in teaching and researching topics on business strategy, corporate strategy, in entrepreneurship, corporate entrepreneurship, innovation, behavioral strategy, strategic decision-making, corporate resource allocation. He has a PhD in business administration and management and has been actively involved in executive development in a wide range of industries, including manufacturing, professional services, sports, and arts. He has taught in India, in China, Brazil, Russia, Middle East, as well as other several European countries. He has received the prestigious Bocconi Teaching Award for 3 consecutive years. We are delighted to have you on board, sir. Welcome for the panel discussion.
Thank you very much, Umesh.
Let us introduce the next panelist, Mr. Sam Kamath. He is the head of technology investment banking with ICICI Securities. He has a successful track record in investment banking across United States, Middle East, Canada, and India. Currently, leading capital market transactions inclusive of IPO, debt transactions, venture capital investments, PEs, capital raises for startup growth stage companies, and mergers and acquisitions in IT services and new age technologies. He has direct access to 100 plus VC growth stage investors and tech companies in the US. He has been an advisor for clients and arranged capital on several transactions valued over $30 plus billion, including debt, equity, and M&A. He has always been an advisor for mid-cap and large-cap clients, including Fortune 500 companies, that is mixed of telecom and technology companies, on bond issuance, cross-border acquisition finance strategy, MA advisory, capital structure optimization, liability management, share buyback, credit ratings, investor relations strategy, and recurring businesses from clients. We are really delighted to have you, sir, on board. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Umesh.
Our next panelist is none other than Mr. Ajay Bohora. He is a co-founder and MD of SDFC Credila Financial Services and SDFC Limited Company. He has earned Bachelor of Engineering from IIT Bombay University and MBA from Hofstra University, New York. He started his career with Tata Exports Limited and then went to New York to pursue his MBA. After that, he worked in the field of finance at various positions for 6 years at MetLife in its New York offices. After 8 years in USA, he returned to India to start a joint venture in partnership with a USA company. With a track record of success, in 2006, along with his brother Anil, he founded Credila, which provides educational loans to students to study in abroad universities. He has served as a special invitee to one of the committees at UGC. He has also served as member of Higher Education Network, FICCI, Federation for Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industries, Delhi. He is a recipient of Engineering Achievement Award by the Institute of Engineers India and the Emerging Leader of the Year Award. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us for this panel discussion.
Thank you, Umesh. Just one correction in the designation. I'm the co-founder, not as the MD anymore, just exited in the month of December 2019. Thank you.
Thank you for the update, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So what an incredible panel and distinctive panel we have here with us today to discuss this amazing topic, whether the students should approach job, higher education, or entrepreneurship. And it cannot be a better platform than ESummit 2021 to bring highlights pertaining to the same. So without wasting time, let us move on to our first question. Let us start with the fundamental question as to why, pertaining to the respective profession of our incredible panelists. Professor Bardolet, since you have student-professional juncture across various demographies, what prompted you to choose academics as a career?
Yes, Umesh. So, to put it briefly, I chose academia as a professional career because, one, I got a chance to try it, and two, I really liked it. And it's as simple as that. We were talking about before we got into this session, how it wasn't really a long-term planning thing. I wasn't seeing 15, 20 years into my career. It was just about looking at the next step. But I would stress, having a background from engineering, so it was a little bit of a switch going from an engineering background to business education. It's that it is really important getting a chance to try it, right? Having the opportunity to see firsthand what academia means and the job involved before taking the next step, rather than just asking. If someone has the opportunity, you should always try to experience it. That was my case, and I think it really determined the first important steps of my career, especially in academia, because academia has a very large upfront investment. So anybody who's interested in the academic career has to be willing to spend a good number of years just investing in the PhD and in the studies, to then have a career that is basically quite narrow, right? So that's why it's especially important to have that initial experience to know what you're facing. But that's about it.
Thank you so much, sir. Let us understand from Mr. Bohora, who has helped in realizing the dreams of thousands of students getting an international degree with Credila. So, what has been your why in the journey?
Thank you, Umesh. I think, well, the journey started about 30 years ago. After doing engineering from VJTI, my father, and I went to get the education loans because I had gotten admission into for MBA in New York. And we went to about 15, 20 banks, but it was very difficult to get education loan. Finally, we got one and, could go abroad and got my life transformed. That was one data point. Other data point was, I was the investor into one paramedical science institute, and those students were not getting education loans. So this is one side of the spectrum. On the other side, after our first BPO venture, when I went to Boca Raton, Florida, into one structured finance event, that's when, the data got presented. I learned that student loans industry in the US was the second largest, and even it is now, second largest asset class after mortgages. They have $1.2 trillion of education loans outstanding. So that's when the first thought came along. On one hand, I was not able to get education loans. Our students also were not able to get education loans. On the other hand, in the US, it was the second largest asset class. That's when the thought came along, why can we not have student loan focused lender in India, like Sallie Mae in the US or HDFC is there for housing loan. That's the why. And then we thought of transforming lives and building the nation, and that became the mission to found Credila from a city called Nasik. That's where I belong to.
Thank you so much, sir, for giving an insights into how you initiated your entrepreneurial journey, and it is really inspiring. Let us understand from Mr. Kamath, as to the kind of vast experience he has in the area of investment and mergers and acquisition. Sir, could you brief us and our audience, what was your why?
In a life of an investment banker, no day is the same. Every day is as exciting that it could be, right? Because you tend to learn every day new things, because we are covering different businesses, specifically in technology, if you can think about, right? There are so many things that's happening in technology. So every day is a different day. And you tend to meet very accomplished people, may it be CFOs, CEOs, or promoters. And you are directly adding value to them by providing advice, by giving them advisory, which is highly visible. And whether you are doing an IPO or a PE capital raise or M&A, the overall thing is extremely intellectually stimulating, because you are always in a high adrenaline job. Because when you're talking to the CEOs or all these high accomplished people, you have been always pushed, you have to be very prepared, but nevertheless you get the visibility. And so I think overall a Wall Street job is always a coveted job from that perspective.
Thank you so much, sir, for highlighting those incredible insights in your work environment and your journey. The other pertinent question which students might be now hungry to listen or to gain some insights would be, when you look back at your journey, is there something which you think you could have done differently just after you graduated? Like the students who are listening to us right now will be in dilemma with respect to getting a job or pursuing higher studies or setting up your own business. What is your take? We can have Professor Bardolet to start off with, and then we can have a round of feedback from each one of our panelists.
Sure. For sure, there are always some what ifs, right, or things that you wish you could take back. Although it's always difficult to imagine then which path would have ensued after changing, doing that differently. But one general thing that I think I would bring up as my experience as something I would have done different is being less selective with the things you learn in your initial years in your studies. When you're young, you always tend to focus a lot on the things you like and on the things that you think you're going to be doing in the future. And maybe you put aside a little bit more other subjects, other skills that you don't like as much, right? Simply, you don't have that much interest. My experience is you never know what skill you're going to need in your future career. You never know, given the environmental change, given the change in your career path, what you will need at a certain moment in time. So since you have so much time at that age, it's worth investing in a lot of skills and not be very focused on a few. And that would be my learning from doing things differently at that point.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Bohora or Mr. Sam Kamath, would you like to also give your insights?
Yeah, if I can just add, I think while going through the struggles of life in the early phase of anyone's career, or especially in my career, that time it was, I was questioning myself, could I not be selling insurance and selling mutual funds as a financial planner in New York and do something differently? But when I look back, since the question is what would I do differently, I think I feel that the struggle defines the person. It defined me. So I wouldn't want to do anything differently. And the reason being, how the dots get connected, it will be interesting for the students to know. See, we did not have a business background. My father is a lawyer. So because I was good at cold calling, because I had to sell life insurance and mutual funds, that cold calling skill, as Professor David has also said, some skills come in handy. That skill helped us get a joint venture with a Des Moines, Iowa-based company. So, eventually, if the depth of your conviction is deep enough, if the hunger is really very intense for you to succeed, and if you are ready to pay the price, dots get connected, because there are multiple ways to reach the destination of success. So in my opinion, I think if we do everything right, put our 100% in it, we eventually reach our destination.
Thank you so much, sir, for that incredible insights. Mr. Kamath, what is your insights about it?
Two things I will definitely say, right? One is I did pursue my business school and MBA in the US 8 years after my undergrad. So that was a very long time. I think I should have pursued it much earlier, maybe around 4 years is the right optimal time, right? And the secondly is I would have plunged into entrepreneurship, much sooner. Although my job is similar to an entrepreneur because we run a P&L for ourselves, but nevertheless, running a true entrepreneur like Ajay is, I think that is something which definitely I would love to do maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And so those are, I think I would have done a bit differently from my side.
Thank you so much for that varied, incredible insights, from diverse backgrounds, which we are getting to listen. And I hope the students are also enjoying this incredible panel. The next question is, when we look at the 21st century skills and the jobs, which you have also rightly highlighted, most of the organizations want to hire entrepreneurs who are, self-dependent, like Atmanirbhar, and who are able to take and manage tasks on their own. So shouldn't the young graduates want to become more entrepreneur and focus on getting those skills which can help them, get the entrepreneurial education? What is your take on this? We can start off with maybe with Mr. Bohora here first.
Yeah, well, my personal view is that given the fact that half-life period of every product or services is shrinking, the world is changing rapidly, and we are moving towards the gig economy, where employment for the rest of the life is, like an impossibility. It doesn't exist anymore. Given that dynamics and the change that is happening, being an entrepreneur could be a choice, but not acquiring entrepreneurial skills or entrepreneurial mindset is absolutely not possible. One has to have entrepreneurial mindset and the skills. The reason being, in my opinion, like any startup, startup identifies opportunities and then fine tunes the business plan to leverage those opportunities. So similarly, everyone's career, the students' career and the millennials, for them now, the career is a startup, because they will need to identify the opportunities in the gig economy. One has to retool himself or herself, and also keep learning, keep acquiring new skills, competencies, and the mindset. So the resume becomes a business plan. So what kind of life skills we acquire, life experiences we acquire, become very critical. So to be able to survive in the gig economy, entrepreneurial mindset is the most important and inevitable thing one has to learn, in my opinion.
Professor David Bardolet, sir, you interact with so many students and you have worked in so many demographies. What is your idea about, like, what is that students' demand in this aspect?
Yeah, so definitely, I fully agree with Ajay. I mean, the answer to your question is yes, absolutely. Given how companies or what companies are demanding increasingly and the environment, students do need to acquire and to have entrepreneurial education. The question I think we are struggling is the next step is, what is entrepreneurial education, right? I think we talk about mindset, we talk about certain skills, we talk about business planning or pitching, but we still don't have a very clear idea of what is entrepreneurial education. In some cases, we talk about traits, personal traits, like entrepreneurs are risk takers, are driven people. Not sure we can teach that into people. I think people have to develop this through life, through incentives. So maybe the idea is that companies and everybody, government alike, create an incentive system for people to take more risk, and then people will become more risk takers, and then there will be more experiences in entrepreneurship. But then in terms of education, I think we're still trying to define, and anybody who has additional insights on this, it's great to hear about what is exactly entrepreneurial education, because we are changing, and I'm speaking now as from the side of the higher education institutions. We are thinking a lot about changing our traditional programs. The MBA program is something that has been incredibly useful and powerful for many, many years, but it's in transition. It's changing because today's and tomorrow's type of work need something probably more fragmented, that as Sam was saying, right? People go to school and then maybe work for a long time, do an MBA, or as it happens very often here in India, people go to school and then get an MBA, a postgraduate program, right? Maybe we need a system in which people are taught in different points in their first 10, 15 years of a career, in smaller number of weeks or months in those teaching experiences, and they combine in between real entrepreneurial experiences in which they can apply that skill, right? So I think there's got to be more integration, at least of the work that schools do and the personal experience that people have. And from there, I think the entrepreneurial education will happen.
Thank you so much, sir, for that insight. Mr. Kamath, here I would like to also highlight, like, I also come from an engineering background, and you are from ICICI Securities and have information about venture capital investments and a lot of other things, which engineering graduates don't have during their career and during their education, and they miss out a very important aspect pertaining to they can come up with brilliant products, but how to finance it, what should be the pricing and all. What is your take about it, sir?
See, that's so let me put it this way, right? I come across a lot of entrepreneurs, some of which you use on a daily basis. It could be one of your food delivery guys, or it could be your classified guys whom you deal with, right? So you have seen one thing people sees only success. One thing I just want to alarm the crowd. People see only success. There are multiple failures as well, and that is very evident in the system, right? So when a venture capitalist sees this, right, he will see through you directly how much an individual has the grit to go through the whole business execution, right? An idea, thousands can generate an idea, but it is not about the idea that is important. It's about the execution post the idea that makes it a difference, because that is where a success and a failure lies. And how much patience or a persistence the person has is very important. So from a funding perspective, right, when you go to a VC, he will go through of course, he would want to understand your idea, what prototypes you have built, and all those, good things, and how business plan is it, how solid it is, right? People, how big is your total addressable market size? So have you thought through all those things? So once he sees through everything, right, then he also wants to understand, because end of the day, I am betting on you as an individual, right? That is my bet I'm going to lay on, right? Whether my $1 million or $5 million, whether you can deliver on that $5 million, right? And so that is where it's, rubber meets the road. It's not just about the product, it's about how you can execute. Is end of the day, that is very important. And they're not only venture capitalists, right? I think there's also your angels, right? People start with taking the first money is coming always from friends and family. Then is your venture capitalist. And there are various levels of venture capitalists to start up, from a early stage, who will give you a seed fund of 50 lakhs to a crore, to then it keeps growing as you grow.
Right, so thank you so much for that, incredible insights into funding, business modeling, and the kind of market which one should be able to address to before pitching out to the investors. From education perspective, I guess also sir has nicely framed the things pertaining to what steps need to be taken to make the students also aware as to how we can deliver this entrepreneurial education. The next pertinent question pertaining to our discussion, I think, is the risk factor. When you look at the jobs, higher studies, or entrepreneurship, all the three today are having some kind of risk attached to it. So how does a student in a graduation identify and mitigate these risks? Can we start with Professor David, sir?
Sure. I would say that if we're talking about graduates that are in their early 20s, I don't see much risk in anything. I don't see much risk in doing any of the three. Obviously, the only one, if you want to do a PhD and work in academia, that ties you more. But that is also something to start later. But early 20s, there is simply no. I keep telling my students, don't sweat too much what you are choosing when you are 22. You have a lot of time to make mistakes, to go back, and also some choices that you think are suboptimal, that are less than what you were expecting, turn out to be great opportunities for your career. Right? So I think we should tell them and encourage them to take the step, make the decision that with the analysis of the moment seems good or is the one that is available sometimes, right? And then put all the spirit and all the mindset in doing that well, and then look for the next one. But I don't see much risk in those initial years in pursuing an entrepreneurial opportunity. I think it's a great thing, and we should see a lot more than this. If anything, I think this idea of postgraduate studies have tempered, right, the spirit of students and made them just look for a stable job. I think that is changing, fortunately, but I see very little risk.
Thank you so much, sir. Mr. Bohora, what is your take about this risk factor? Because you have been through this process, and I guess you have been in the position of taking risk at multiple points in your career.
Used to have the full head full of hair. I lost it all due to taking those risks. So I do agree with what Sam has said, that there are a lot of unknowns involved and a lot of risks involved. It's not a cup of tea of anyone to be a successful entrepreneur in terms of scaling it up and really executing it year after year, day after the day. So having said that, I think entrepreneurial, the mindset means doing more with less for more and being able to create value, not just leveraging capital, but being able to create something by connecting the dots out of very the small or little resources. That's how I think. So to mitigate those risks, because there are so many risks available, the first one is one has to really understand, is it my natural calling? Do I want to be an entrepreneur because I cannot do anything else? Meaning I don't feel like doing, that's my real inner voice telling me. That's the first part. Second, I think the best way to de-risk or mitigate the risks related to entrepreneurship is get the best education possible. The reason being, to be successful as an entrepreneur requires a basket of qualities. It requires a lot of skills, competencies, knowledge, network. Those need to be developed. Second thing is, instead of jumping into being any entrepreneurial venture, it's a good idea to take global exposure, learn something new, and also work somewhere to be able to develop professional networks. That's when more doors of opportunities open up. By then, the person also matures, gets the robust foundation which are prerequisite to be able to build a successful venture. But at the end, having said all of that, there is an element of risk. No matter you do everything right and the external environment changes, or you are in an industry where the winner takes it all, you do everything right and still it fails. So it's very unfortunate, but that's how the entrepreneurial journey is.
Thank you so much, sir, for giving us that valuable insight. Mr. Kamath, you might be meeting so many young entrepreneurs who might be pitching so many ideas to you. And obviously, you help some of the startups and the businesses who come to you in mitigating the risk. What is the process involved, and what is your word for the young generation?
The process involved is, typically you don't hire a banker when you're doing your initial capital raise. You should have a proof of concept should have been already done. You should have a minimal kind of a business, right? You should have a minimal revenue model where you've proven to the business world, and you would have used your friends and family money, and you would have reached out to a few startup VCs who have funded you, maybe $1 million or $2 million, right? And with that, you have escalated to a healthy revenue model, not profitable for sure, but healthy revenue model. So when you come to funding to a banker, typically those are the traits that he would see. How big is the white space which you are operating it? As Ajay did mention, right? If somebody is starting another Swiggy or a Zomato or a Ola or a Uber, I think those ideas will be immediately shot down, because it's a winner takes all kind of a market. Right, so you have to be very creative, out of the box idea, which it could be a replication of US thought process, but not in India. That's still acceptable. but nevertheless, the white space should be huge. That is first. And of course, then, you have to show that passion that you can execute upon it, which is the most important thing. And then that comes only when you talk about it. Not a PowerPoint presentation can't do any justice to it. Which would mean that you should have your numbers at your fingertips when you're talking. And about the industry, the depth, it could be a product which a tech guy is building, but nevertheless, you should have everything to do with how we can scale up and all those good things that he has to talk about.
Thank you so much, sir, for that incredible insights again. When we are deciding upon the future career as a graduate, most of the parents are also not aware what is going to happen in next 10 years down the line or 5 years down the line. And most of the decisions have been made maybe by the parents of the students, or the students also today, because they are connected with net, they have a lot of information as to what they really want to do and what career they are envisaging for themselves. But if we look back as to, when you were pursuing your graduation, what were the things you zeroed down as to what career you want to make up for yourself? Professor Bardolet, would you like to answer this?
Yeah, so I'll start two things. I'll start with what I said before about creating this really wide base of knowledge and skills, right? I think that I would absolutely recommend, given what we've talked about, how careers go. The other thing I like to tell my students in those initial years, when you are in college, when you are doing postgraduate studies, when you're having your initial work experiences, find what you're good at. And I think in the end, a lot of careers move in that direction, what you're good at, which tends to coincide, right? Tends to fuse with what you like, right? And I think we tell people a lot, pursue what you like and figure out what you like and pursue it. But maybe it's also practical to tell them, figure out what you're good at. And you have a lot of opportunities during a program or during a work experience to say, what do I stand out in? And probably that will be something that you enjoy using as a talent and doing, and take the next step in your career based on that. And maybe that would be some advice that I would give.
Mr. Ajay, what do you think? What should be the focus? I mean, like, how did you envisage? Was it a planned method, or how did you go about it?
Well, in my case, while doing engineering, during the campus interviews, the brand was most important for me. So I ended up working with Tata Exports. But for, given the scenario today, I think more than the brand, which role can help student do unlearning and relearning and develop the skills required to be ready for the gig economy, I think that could be a very important criteria. That is one. Second is there any opportunity to probably invent oneself, or try to analyze oneself? If the job really helps stretch the boundaries, that it should be something which you can think, you think that you can never do. But if the opportunity or the challenge thrown at you, if it stretches your limits, then it's a process of self-discovery. As Professor David has said, you have to do various things to really identify that this is what I want to do. And then it drives on its own. To me, actually, being an entrepreneur was a childhood dream. So it came in naturally and everything fell in place thanks to the Almighty God, I think. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir, for that insight. Mr. Kamath, how was your journey about this?
Look, see, when I moved to the United States, I started an IT career. And that's where I realized, wanted to get into finance. And that's how my journey into investment banking has been. And one thing, as David said, also as Ajay said, life is a pyramid. That's the way I put it, right? The more skill sets you learn in the beginning is very important, rather than specializing in the beginning. Then as your career progresses, you shed off what is not natural to you. And you keep growing up and be a specialized guy at the end, not at the beginning of a career. So that's how my thought process would, at least my advice to students would be.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir, again, for that incredible insights. The very important aspect pertaining to job, higher education, or entrepreneurship is the kind of investment decision which is required. I mean, like for a job also today, we require special skills on which the students have to invest, obviously for higher education and entrepreneurship. But when we look at financing for higher education and job, we have more of a structured financing. But when we look at entrepreneurship, we are not much aware about it. So how should one plan to finance initially and target some sustainability into the business or the startup? Uh, can we have some feedback from insights from Mr. Ajay?
Yeah, well, I think the one step before that, if I can, start there, I think, see, after graduating from an engineering college, as an example, while deciding what to do for the post graduation, like a graduate to go to the graduate school, at that time, the cost of education can become probably a burden going forward during the entrepreneurial journey or any other journey. So return on investment has to be evaluated. Payback period also has to be evaluated, because otherwise that would reduce the number of options available, will reduce the flexibility available to the entrepreneurs. In my opinion, the best thing to do is start with a shoestring budget. The proof of concept, as Sam has said, try to see whether you can does your business plan really work. So while working, you can get some or find some time, do something right, show the proof of concept, have really the conviction that it will yield into cash flow positive venture, and then go into it, than stretching something and borrowing too much, so that your life expectancy gets shortened. That shouldn't happen, I think.
Mr. Kamath, what will be your advice pertaining to this topic?
So today, when we look at companies, right, see, at least the successful ones I can talk about, right? The one thing that you can see, the common denominator is people have some experience, corporate experience, before they jump in, right? Because they know what the business problem that they're going to try to solve, right? And that is very important, right? If you don't, most of the investors look at what is this guy's pedigree. Okay, IIT undergrad is fantastic. IIT Bombay undergrad is fantastic, no doubt about it. But what has it done using that degree? Maybe for a year, 2 years or so, right? Then he has gone to a problem, seen a problem, evaluated it, and developed a solution for that. Okay, now this guy knows what he's talking, right? Otherwise, it's all theoretical, right? Unless he's coming with a concept of a B2C, which is possible. But nevertheless, working at a corporate is the most important funding that he needs to do for himself. Then is all the money funding, which is your VC and all those things, come later. So that first in capital is your human capital that you need to put in yourself to gain that experience. That is very, very vital.
Thank you so much, sir, for that insights. Professor Bardolet, what are your insights pertaining to this?
So I fully agree with Ajay and Sam about the way an entrepreneurial career should be funded. I guess I would talk to a different angle and also address how you should fund your educational career, right? And I think it is useful to think of the educational career also as your own startup, right? You need certain investment money to go through the different studies that you think are useful for you in different moments in your career. I think it's either you find a good investor, whether it's the school giving you a scholarship, the family, the government, whoever who supports you, or you bootstrap it, and then you take a more incremental approach, right? Of maybe doing something more modest and working, and then going back to doing something else. The one solution that I don't find so good or less compared to the others is leveraging a lot at the beginning, right? Especially moving forward, since there is so much uncertainty in today's world. Maybe before, as I was talking before about the MBA programs and how they were very established and perfectly the ROI. That situation, yes, I mean, it allows you to take a lot of leverage because you know what can happen. But if you're looking for a job in a changing environment or a more entrepreneurial approach to your career, you cannot leverage too much at the beginning. So it's either you can find an investor to support it, or you bootstrap it.
Thank you so much, sir, for that incredible insights into the decision-making process. I hope our panel discussion has added a lot of insights and given a lot of information to the students who are going to, envisage their career. Meanwhile, while we were discussing, we had some questions coming up from the students community. So I would like to take a couple of them. One of the questions is I would pass it on to Mr. Ajay, because it's from the startup. If I have a startup idea on a very hot issue, example environmental issues, but it is very cost intensive and people end up not trying, what are your opinion on this?
See, I think the best way, and we have done a BPO first and then even HDFC Credila, where Merrill Lynch were our investors, and then HDFC came along. So I think the same philosophy could be used. If it's capital intensive, then finding a strategic investor can do two things. One is that strategic investor would validate the business plan, whether or not your solution is really the solution ready for the market, and B, the probability of success goes up, and that large entity can do the hand holding to take that startup through the journey and evolution to really reach the conclusion.
Thank you so much, sir, for that insights. The next question is to Professor David Bardolet, sir. There are a lot of online courses available, and it is mostly easily accessible. So should we really plan to undertake a higher education only for the sake of the degree? Is the knowledge we have not important?
It is, and I would describe the online education that is now out there as still being defined. What is good, what is well done, what is useful, what will lead to a micro credential that companies will take seriously. It's in flux. So in the next 5 years, I still would not put all my eggs in there. I would not recommend students to say, okay, I'll put aside the option of a longer program, established program, for just acquiring skills at a low cost in the online world, right? But it's in flux. So I think 5-8 years from now, maybe earlier, because things always happen earlier than what we academics say. So maybe earlier, we will have an online world that will establish a career path for people. And that's a little bit also my hope, and business schools are transforming towards that world, that the business education and the skill upgrading that we offer will be fragmented across the career of a person in shorter bursts, right? And a lot of those bursts will be online, and it will be a good online work. So I think, just to go to the more concrete answer, or I guess to what the person who asked the question was addressing, the online world now is good for filling up. So if you want to have some basic knowledge of Python, if you want to have some basic knowledge of marketing, if you want to know what happens in the VC world in general, how it's structured, you can go there and learn. I would not trust it yet to help you build the base of skills that you need to have a professional career.
Thank you, sir, for that the wonderful insights. One last question to Mr. Sam Kamath. Do you think the foreign education is overhyped, or is it really worth to pursue higher education in foreign universities? Or what would be your take in the current scenario?
I would say, at least this is my advice I give to a lot of people, because having lived abroad or in the United States for around 18 odd years, right? One thing I would advise is it depends. The answer depends. It depends in the sense that what university you get in, right? That matters the most. If your university is, say, around top 30 globally or top 50, then it makes your life easier when you get a job, specifically with all the visa issues and all those things. You need to consider the whole package. You can't just consider the education itself, Because when you come out of a job, when you spend in the US $150,000 for a 2-year MBA or for an MS, then you have to be confident that you can get a job, or coming back to India working for a 15 lakh or a 20 lakh or a whatever 50 lakh job, that doesn't make a good return on investment. So the first thing is university matters. That's what that is the key. And if you get in a good university, to everybody, whoever is in the audience, I think you should take that plunge. It's a risky plunge, but it is worth the plunge.
Thank you so much, sir, for that wonderful insights pertaining to job versus higher education versus entrepreneurship. I hope the students and the global audience who is going to watch this video now and once it is available on the YouTube will be gaining a lot of insights. And thank you for the deliberations and for your valuable time to join us for this wonderful panel discussion. I would like to hand over, to the IIT team. Also, from my behalf, I would like to thank Ajay Bohora, sir, Mr. Sam Kamath, sir, and Mr. Dr. Professor David Bardolet, sir, for joining us for this incredible discussion.
Thank you, Umesh. Thank you.
Thank you very
Really
much.
enjoyed it. Thanks a lot.
Pleasure.
Thank you, sir. And over to you guys now. Wishing you a great ESummit 2021. Thank you.
Thank you.